August 16, 1977. Graceland Mansion, Memphis, Tennessee. The king of rock and roll sits alone in his bathroom, clutching a book about death and the afterlife. The page is marked. The words are underlined. Hours later, he is found on that same floor, the book still open beside him. Was Elvis Presley searching for answers in his final moments? Or did he know something the rest of us didn't? His family tried to hide what he was reading. The world wasn't supposed to know. But secrets like this don't stay buried forever. Especially when they reveal the truth about a man's final hours. Here is the story. Memphis in August is a suffocating kind of heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every breath feel heavy. Inside Graceland, the air conditioning hums constantly, but it can't cool the tension that has been building for years. Elvis Presley is 42 years old. Let that sink in. 42. The man who changed music forever, who made women faint and men want to be him, is barely into middle age. But if you saw him that summer, you wouldn't recognize the young rebel who gyrated on Ed Sullivan and drove America wild. This Elvis is bloated, exhausted. His eyes carry the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. He's trapped inside his own kingdom. Graceland is supposed to be a sanctuary. White columns, rolling lawns, the jungle room with its green shag carpet and Polynesian decor. But for Elvis, it's become a gilded cage. He can't leave without being mobbed. He can't trust anyone outside his inner circle, and even then, trust is a luxury he can't afford. His career is in shambles. The concerts are still selling out, but he's forgetting lyrics on stage, slurring words. His body is betraying him in front of thousands. The pills don't help anymore, they just keep him numb enough to function. The doctors keep prescribing. Nobody says no to Elvis Presley. By mid-August, those closest to him can see it. The end is coming. His father, Vernon, watches his son shuffle through the halls of Graceland like a ghost. His girlfriend, Ginger Alden, tries to stay close, but Elvis is somewhere else. Always somewhere else. Always somewhere else. He's reading constantly. Not magazines or scripts. Books about spirituality, the afterlife, reincarnation, the search for Bridie Murphy, the impersonal life, Chero's Book of Numbers. Elvis is obsessed with what comes next. He's terrified of it, and maybe, just maybe, he's preparing for it. The staff at Graceland noticed the books piled on his nightstand, scattered on the floor of his bedroom, stacked in the bathroom. They don't ask questions. Nobody questions the king, but they see the titles. They see the underlined passages. They see a man searching desperately for meaning in a life that has become unbearable. On the night of August 15th, Elvis can't sleep. He never sleeps well anymore. His bedroom is dark, heavy curtains blocking out the world. Ginger is asleep beside him, but he doesn't wake her. He gets up, moves slowly, every step an effort. He takes a book with him. It's called The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus by Frank O. Adams. Not a typical read, but nothing about Elvis is typical anymore. He's been highlighting sections, folding down pages, absorbing every word about mortality, divinity, and what it means to face death. He sits in his private bathroom. The space is enormous, more like a lounge than a bathroom, with a padded chair, a telephone, a television. This is where Elvis spends hours, reading, thinking, escaping. Tonight he opens the book again, and he reads about death. To understand why Elvis was reading about death, you have to understand how he got here. This wasn't sudden, this was years in the making. After Priscilla left him in 1972, something broke inside Elvis. The divorce wasn't just a personal failure, it was a public humiliation. The world watched as the king's marriage crumbled. He threw himself into work, into pills, into anything that could distract him from the pain. The Vegas residencies became a prison. Night after night, the same songs, the same moves, the same fake smile. He'd gained weight. The jumpsuits had to be let out. The press mocked him. They called him bloated, a has-been, a parody of himself. But the fans still came. They still screamed his name. And that was the cruelest part. Elvis couldn't escape even if he wanted to. The world demanded the king, so he had to keep playing the role even as it killed him. The pills started innocently enough. Uppers to perform, downers to sleep, pain medication for chronic injuries. But by 1977, Elvis was taking a cocktail of substances that would terrify any doctor who wasn't on his payroll. And his doctors were absolutely on his payroll. Dr. George Nishopoulos, a Dr. Nick, prescribed thousands of pills to Elvis in the final years. Dimerol, Quaaludes, Valium, Codeine. Morphine. Anything Elvis wanted, Dr. Nick provided. He told himself he was helping, that if he didn't prescribe them, Elvis would just get them somewhere else. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, Elvis was dying and everyone around him knew it. His bodyguards, Red and Sonny West, tried to intervene. They saw the excessive drug use, the erratic behavior, the complete disregard for his own health. They begged him to slow down, to get real help. Elvis fired them. In 1977, they published a tell-all book, Elvis, What Happened? It exposed everything, the drugs, the guns, the paranoia, the midnight rages. Elvis was devastated. Betrayed by men he considered brothers, he spent the final weeks of his life humiliated and broken. But through it all, he kept reading. The spiritual books became his refuge. Elvis had always been religious, a mama's boy raised on gospel music and Southern Baptist faith, but now his curiosity went deeper. He wanted to know what happened after death. Was there a heaven? Would he see his mother again? Would he be judged for the life he'd lived? Quick question. Have you ever had a secret that was eating you alive? Let us know in the comments, because Elvis had secrets, so many secrets. He'd done things he wasn't proud of. Affairs, betrayals, he'd hurt people who loved him. And in those quiet moments alone with his books, he wondered if redemption was even possible. On August 15th, his last full day alive, Elvis seemed agitated. He had a dentist appointment scheduled for that evening, dental work at 10:30 p.m. That's how Elvis lived, nocturnal, disconnected from normal rhythms. He came back from the dentist around midnight. Ginger was waiting. They went to bed, but Elvis couldn't settle. His mind was racing. His body ached. He told Ginger he was going to read in the bathroom for a while. She said, okay. She fell asleep, and Elvis walked into that bathroom carrying the scientific search for the face of Jesus. He sat down in his padded chair. He opened the book, and he began to read about what happens when we die. The bathroom is silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning. Elvis sits hunched in his chair, the book open on his lap. His reading glasses rest on the bridge of his nose. His breathing is labored. It's been labored for months, but he doesn't notice anymore. It's just part of life now. The book's pages are worn. He's read sections multiple times. Tonight, he's focused on a chapter discussing the resurrection, the evidence of life after death, the scientific search for proof that something exists beyond this physical world. He underlines a passage. His handwriting is shaky. Elvis has always believed in something bigger. As a child, his twin brother Jesse was stillborn. His mother Gladys told him that he had the soul of two people, himself and his brother, that he was chosen for something special. Maybe that's why fame never satisfied him. He was always searching for that as something special, that purpose. But tonight, in this bathroom, the search feels desperate. His chest hurts. It's been hurting for days, but he doesn't tell anyone. He pops a few pills. He always has pills within reach and continues reading. The words on the page blur slightly. He blinks hard, focuses again. Is there consciousness after death? That's the question the book is exploring. And Elvis is absorbing every word like a man studying for the most important test of his life. Hours pass. It's now the early morning of August 16th. Ginger is still asleep in the bedroom. The house is quiet. The staff knows not to disturb Elvis when he's in the bathroom. Around 6:30 a.m., Elvis feels a wave of nausea. His heart is pounding irregularly. The room tilts slightly. He stands up, still holding the book, but his legs won't hold him. Elvis Presley collapses to the floor. The book falls from his hands, landing open beside him. The page he was reading, the page about death and resurrection, remains visible. He tries to call out, but his voice won't come. His body has finally given up. Years of abuse, years of neglect, years of heartbreak, they all come crashing down in this one terrible moment. Elvis is conscious for a few seconds, maybe longer. Time doesn't work right when you're dying. He can see the book beside him. The words are still there, still asking that impossible question. Is there life after death? And Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, closes his eyes for the last time, not knowing the answer. At 2:00 p.m., Ginger Alden wakes up. She notices Elvis isn't in bed. She assumes he's still reading. But when she walks into the bathroom, she sees him, face down on the red shag carpet. Unresponsive. She screams. The staff rushes in. They try to revive him. They call 911. Paramedics arrive within minutes and work frantically to bring him back. But Elvis is already gone. At Baptist Memorial Hospital, doctors attempt resuscitation for another 30 minutes. It's futile. At 3:30 p.m., Elvis Aaron Presley is pronounced dead. The official cause, cardiac arrhythmia, heart failure. But everyone knows the truth. The pills killed him. The lifestyle killed him. The inability to escape the prison of his own fame killed him. And in his final hours, he was alone with a book about death, searching for answers he would never find in this life. When the police arrived at Graceland to investigate, they documented everything. The pills scattered across counters, the medical equipment, the chaos of a desperate rescue attempt. And there, on the bathroom floor, still open to the page Elvis had been reading, was the scientific search for the face of Jesus. One officer picked it up carefully, noted the title in his report, and set it aside. The book was never shown to the press. The family made sure of that. They didn't want the world to know that Elvis spent his final hours contemplating death. It was too intimate, too painful, but the truth has a way of surfacing. In the days after Elvis died, Graceland became a fortress. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, was devastated beyond words. He'd already buried his wife Gladys in 1958. Now he had to bury his son, the son who was supposed to outlive him, the son who was supposed to conquer the world. The autopsy was rushed. The findings were controversial. The official report stated heart disease. But the toxicology report told a different story. 14 different drugs were found in Elvis's system. Dr. Nick was investigated but never charged with a crime. He maintained that he was trying to help Elvis, to control what he knew was an inevitable addiction. Maybe he believed that. Maybe he was just protecting himself. Either way, the damage was done. The media descended on Memphis like vultures. They wanted every detail, every rumor, every secret. But the Presley family locked down. They controlled the narrative. They controlled what the world would see. The book was hidden. The book was hidden. Not destroyed, hidden. The family kept it, along with other personal items that revealed too much about Elvis's final state of mind. They didn't want the world to see him as broken, as afraid, as human. They wanted the world to remember the king, but inside Graceland, those who were there that day couldn't forget. The book haunted them. The staff who saw it on the floor, the officers who documented it, Ginger Alden, who knew Elvis had been reading it obsessively in his final weeks. She would later write about it in her memoir, decades after his death. She described how Elvis was consumed by questions about mortality, how he would read passages aloud to her, asking her opinion, searching for reassurance. "Oh, do you think there's something after this?" he'd ask. She didn't know how to answer him. Nobody did. The revelation about the book didn't become widely known until years later, when investigators and biographers started piecing together the final hours. Crime scene photos were leaked, personal accounts were published, and slowly, the truth emerged. Elvis Presley died searching for answers. He wasn't just a victim of excess. He was a man in spiritual crisis, a man who'd been given everything the world had to offer and found it wasn't enough. Fame didn't fill the void. Money didn't fill the void. Money didn't fill the void. Adoration from millions didn't fill the void. So he turned to something deeper, something eternal. And in those final hours, alone in his bathroom with a book about the face of Jesus and the mystery of death, Elvis was doing what so few of us have the courage to do, confronting his own mortality head-on. The book, The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus, wasn't about religion in the traditional sense. It was about evidence, proof. It examined the Shroud of Turin and other relics, trying to use science to understand faith. That was so Elvis. He wanted to believe, but he also wanted to know. And the page he was reading when he collapsed, it discussed the moment of death, what the body experiences, what the soul might experience, whether consciousness continues or simply ends. Witnesses who saw the book said there were notes in the margin. Elvis's handwriting shaky and desperate, asking questions. Is this real, or will I be forgiven? Those notes were never made public. The family made sure of it, but they existed. And they revealed a man who was terrified, not of death itself, but of what might come after. Elvis Presley's death shocked the world. But the story of his final hours reveals something far more profound than a celebrity tragedy. It reveals a human being in pain, searching for meaning in a life that had spiraled out of control. He could have spent those last hours doing anything. He could have been surrounded by people. He could have been medicated into oblivion. But instead he chose to read, to think, to prepare. Though no, prepare. That book, left open on the floor beside him, is one of the most haunting images in rock and roll history. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's honest. Elvis wasn't ready to die, but he knew it was coming, and in his own way, he was trying to make peace with it. Oh, the world remembers Elvis as the king, the hip-shaking, rule-breaking icon who changed music forever, and he was all of that. But he was also a man who struggled with addiction, with loneliness, with the crushing weight of fame. He was a man who asked the same questions we all ask when we're alone in the dark. What happens next? Is there more to this? Will I be remembered for who I truly was, or just for what I represented? Elvis's legacy is complicated. He gave us unforgettable music. He broke down barriers. He inspired generations, but he also showed us the cost of fame. The price of living in a world that demands perfection while offering no support when you fall. His final act, reading about death, searching for answers, might be his most relatable moment. Because in that bathroom, he wasn't a superstar. He was just a man afraid and alone, trying to understand the unknowable. The book is still kept by the Presley estate. It's never been displayed, never been shown to the public. It's too personal, too raw. But its existence reminds us that even the king of rock and roll was mortal, that he faced the same fears we all face, and that in his final hours he chose curiosity over denial, contemplation over distraction. Maybe that's the real lesson of Elvis's death. Not how he died, but what he was doing in those last moments. He was seeking truth, and that takes courage. So here's the question: if you knew you only had hours left, what would you want to understand? What questions would you need answered? Think about that, because time doesn't stop for anyone. Not even for kings. And unfortunately, they don't make men like Elvis Presley anymore.